Welcome to the latest episode of the Lessons from the Tank podcast. I am so excited for today's episode, and so are my grandsons. They are huge dinosaur fans, and today I am talking with Dino Don. He came on the show with huge dinosaurs and left with a deal. He talks about taking risks and also being afraid of taking risks. You guys are going to love this episode, and you definitely need to check out his tour that is coming to your city sometime soon. Check this out. Don, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I don't know what I'm getting into.
Well, I guess we'll find out together. But I will tell you that my grandsons absolutely love dinosaurs. They are crazy for dinosaurs. So after this podcast, we're gonna have to have a discussion about bringing them out to meet some of your dinosaurs. So
Sure. Well, it's a genetic defect.
I
Correct yourself.
I have a feeling that if now again they're young, so they're 4 years old, but man, if their craze continues through their adolescence and adult life, they might be following your footsteps. So
Yeah, it never happens. So be reassured. For all the like millions of kids, 4 to 8, who want to be dinosaur scientists, there are only like 35 in the world. So sooner or later, they get the message that there are more responsible careers.
so the bankers and accountants and stuff like that, they all started as dinosaur enthusiasts, huh?
Yeah, and then they got boring.
So for those of you that are listening or watching, today we're talking to Dino Don, who brought dinosaurs onto the Shark Tank set for the first time, and it was one of my favorite episodes. Talk a little bit about what you guys do, because like I said, I this is bringing out the child in me. I'm stuttering. I'm so excited to talk to you. So talk a little bit about what you guys do.
We got to get you some more excitement in your life. Uh, They asked us to go on, actually. They saw an article in Inc. magazine about small businesses, about what we do. And so I actually didn't interview, didn't have a thing that I wanted to do there. But they said, think about, what you could use money for. And there's always something.
Sure.
What we do, and have been doing for only 4 years as a company, is building life-size accurate robotic dinosaurs. So believe it or not, for all the robots that are out there, and there are a lot, most of them are just sort of half-size clunky things. So I had happened to go to a dinosaur dig in central China, which was the same place where all these robots are made. And the guide said, "What, you want to go see a factory?" I said, "Sure." And it turns out that there was no mold, that these things were made only because they had bad information. And so the little old ladies who carve with X-Acto knives and make the foam that turn into the dinosaur, if they got the right information from a scientist that we hired, then they could create giant, 100-foot in size dinosaurs that are pretty true to what we know about how they look. So it opened up a huge market, particularly among zoos. And we're now, well, at the time we went on Shark Tank, we had about a $1.5 million business. Now it's about a $4 million business. And it's almost entirely right now in zoos around the world. Wherever people are listening, there's probably a zoo somewhere near you showing our dinosaurs. And thanks to Mark Cuban's interest, we're branching off into something else as well.
Wow, that's exciting. So one of the things that I was impressed with was, first of all, you did some consulting work on Jurassic Park, right?
I did the first movie, which is why it's better than the others.
Yeah, much more realistic, the first one than the other ones.
Yeah, so that's
But
why I gave the actors.
yeah, I love the fact that you name drop. You're like, yeah, Spielberg. Like you guys talk all the time. Now you have Mark Cuban that you discuss, and Spielberg, and you just rub elbows with a bunch of fancy people there, huh?
Yeah, I can just mention their names as if we talk. Actually, on the set of Jurassic Park, there are a whole lot of hangers on and people who want to become whatever producers, and so they're sucking up all over the set. And to Spielberg in particular, I could care less. I mean, I was having a good time eating the shrimp, and uh, so I actually ended up spending a fair amount of time talking to him because it was nice for him to talk to somebody who didn't want anything. And one of the near do wells came up to me and said, after this is over, you're never going to talk to Steven again. I said, well, that's okay. I wasn't expecting, he's not in the dinosaur business. I don't think I'm going to like hang with him.
Right.
And then you were wrong because when they opened the ride for Jurassic Park, I went to the urinal at Universal Studios and he was in the next stall. So we've continued that close relationship.
It doesn't get much closer than that. So
No, I don't want to get any closer than that. But no, I don't keep regularly in touch with him, and he doesn't bother me, so it's good.
yeah, that is good. And I guess you don't do aliens and stuff like that. So I guess there's very little opportunity to consult on his other movies, right?
Yeah, and well, he's into producing too, which is one reason that the direction led to not such good sequels, I think.
Right.
Yeah, but he's not in dinosaur territory anymore, so he's not in mine. I worked on a Disney dinosaur movie, but beyond that, no movies, a bunch of TV, and a lot of books.
That's incredible. So you are again, for all intents and purposes, one of the few dinosaur experts out there, and especially realistic type of reproductions. I guess I mean, is there a lot of people doing what you do? I
No, there was one American company and one Canadian company. The Canadian company branched off into doing other things, which is always a danger with a business, and that bankrupted them. The American company is getting kind of senile, and then there's one sort of large company that does a little bit of dinosaurs. So very little competition, and yet in its own way, there's a lot of demand for dinosaurs. So it's good.
Well, it captures the imagination that there were these animals that, we find these little artifacts and try to put together what they look like, and some of it is opinion. Were they pink, purple, green, blue?
Mhm.
And so I don't know. It just captures the attention, not of just 4 and 5 year olds, but people like me who I walk in some places and see. I was in airport yesterday, in my goodness, where was I? Chicago, and they have maybe a brontosaurus, and then Pittsburgh has
Yeah.
the T Rex, and you just look at me like, oh my goodness, like these things walked where we walk. It's incredible.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how few adults get that. And all kids, of course, do. The only way, actually, when you think about it, to see those things full size and get that sense of awe is to recreate them. So, TV, you get a little hint. Movies, maybe it's a bigger screen you do. But the actual scale of these things is so stupendous. And that's what makes the robots full size so cool. So when we build them 100 feet long and you stand next to it and you barely come up to its knee, it's a religious experience. It ought to be.
Yeah, and again, just thinking about that, 100 feet long, that's a third of a football field, tip to tail. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
I use school buses. So it's like three and a half school buses and
so you go on, so you go on Shark Tank. First of all, they were talking at the time you went on Shark Tank, you had 150 dinosaurs, right? That
yeah.
were available. Have you guys expanded
Oh, yeah,
since
yeah.
then?
We've got about 400 now.
You got
And
400 dinosaurs. That's
like,
amazing.
more than you'd want to have around the house. But we also have, we branched off in subject matter too, because you can imagine if you're an institution, you want to show dinosaurs about every 3 years. 3 more years, there's a new generation of 3-year-olds who are obsessed with dinosaurs.
Right.
So, what are they going to do in the interim? We want to keep them prisoner to us. So, we have Ice Age animals now in the zoo in Chicago. In Louisville, we're going to have giant insects. We have giant dragons in the Milwaukee Zoo. So, we're getting a sort of a menu of things that we hope will keep institutions working with us every summer.
That's awesome. So you go on the show. You had I love some of the things that you did. First of all, you created you spelled out your business plan, and most of the sharks didn't quite get it. Kevin Leary didn't. Mr. Wonderful didn't get it. Like he didn't believe your numbers. Lori wanted some sort of visual poster to show your business plan. Um,
Well,
but then
they were right. We were trying to present three different ideas at the same time, different things that we wanted to attack, and really, you should just stick to one. Um, that's enough for, particularly Mr. Wonderful, who's pretty thick in the head, needs only one thing to focus on. That would have been good. They cut out the best part, which is when you first go on. I don't know if you had that experience. They all fire questions at you simultaneously.
Mhm.
And I think part of that is to get you off base and have you say things that you regret. Well, they did all that. And, you know, I'm not in the same situation, fortunately, where a lot of people, where their business depends on whether this thing succeeds. They've gambled everything to get that hairbrush to market.
Yep.
We were doing okay. So I didn't feel nervous in that regard. And so they fired all these questions. I said, well, I'll answer you if you just shut up. And the crew was going, yes. Somebody finally told these guys to clam up. Um, Unfortunately, they cut that out of the show.
You
As-
did have one little talk back where somebody interrupted when you were talking to Mark Cuban, right? Right, Robert, and you said, "Well, hey, I'm making this deal, not you," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, that was great. That was awesome." Um,
well, we knew from the start that if, we thought through it a little bit. I mean, I don't know if people going on the show do the research, but only a third of Mr. Wonderful's deals actually happen.
mhm.
His terms are so onerous that people turn around and don't do it. Who did you end up working with?
Lori Grenier.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I think she's very straightforward, um, but he is not. Whereas Cuban is, and he has an order of magnitude more money than the rest of them, so he can
right.
be much more loose with it. Anyway, 80% of his deals do happen. That's a huge gulf.
Yeah,
So we wouldn't have wanted to do business with Mr. Pinhead, even if we could. But uh, we knew that the only guy in the entertainment business, really, which we are in,
right.
Mark Cuban. So he's probably going to be the only one interested. And of course, he was the only one interested. So that's why our T-shirts said on the back, "We love you, Mark Cuban," because we knew when he made an offer, we could turn around and say, "We love you."
I was wondering if it was like almost like the magician thing where you had like a handkerchief in your left pocket if you got one with Lori that says "We love you, Lori," and in your back right pocket you had something like a sign. But yeah,
Yep.
for those of you that are listening, if it's season 12, episode 25, right?
Right. Yep.
Best move in Shark Tank history, as far as I'm concerned. They got a deal with Mark Cuban, turned around, and their shirt said, "We love Mark Cuban." It was amazing. It was a great finale to your segment. I thought it was brilliant.
And of course, Mr. Wonderful, as we're walking out, we can hear him saying, "How'd they do that? How do they know that?"
Hey, you just knew who you wanted. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs that go into the tank do have that person that they think is going to be the best for them, and also have that connection to the product that makes sense. And we, when we were looking at it, Lori Grenier was actually who we thought would be best for us, just because of her, she's more of a retail, and that was kind of
Right.
part of the direction that we were going. So good for you guys.
Yeah, I think that they rotate what they're going to pick up on. That when you think of it, they're shooting half a season in a week,
Right.
and of course they have no prep. But I think there's this little thing going on. Okay, it's your turn. I did one. You do one. There's got to be a little bit of choreography.
Yeah, well, you also have to your point of Mark Cuban having so much, like he's just has more money than God. He could do every single deal, and it wouldn't even put a dent in his net worth, even if every single one failed. What's a $500,000 to Mark Cuban? Nothing. Um,
But
so
he does care about bits and pieces. Uh, I guess that's how you get to be a billionaire in the
yep,
first place. But a lot of his advice that he gives us very freely is to be very conservative about money. And I think he thinks we have a core business. We want to try other things because there's so many things with dinosaurs that could be exponentially larger than what we're doing. But his advice is, build up what you know best. And also, it looks best for him. I don't think he wants to support a company that goes off and does something tangential and goes out of business, and then it looks
Right.
a bad mark on him.
It's interesting because you kind of brought up the same subject twice about focusing on one thing or focusing on a core thing. Both from the pitch side, um, which is it is a downfall. Trying to go in, especially for a company that is trying to raise money. And to your point, you weren't necessarily needing to raise money, but some entrepreneurs that might be listening do need to raise money. They have to go in and talk to investors, and they have to, whether an investor's grandma who's, going to lend them a couple $1,000, or, they're doing a pitch deck for a multi-million dollar deal. Being focused is pretty important. Um,
Yeah, and we needed it at some point too. It's just we were a little further along, not that far in the maturation of the company to not need that. But yeah, it's essential. And for us to try to follow his advice, it was to do what we talked about a little on the show, which is create our own tour.
mhm.
So we're sticking very close to the materials we have and the subject we know well, only getting a little more control of the product. I don't know what the analogy would be in the window screens or something else, but it's like what he did himself with the drug business now, where he's become a middleman
Yep.
so that he can drive the price way down. So if we have our own tour of dinosaurs, we can direct where the money goes, the advertising, and where the receipt of the money all goes to us. So it's a step that we needed money from him to be able to make happen. And it's still in the process of happening. So I don't know whether it's going to work out or not. We don't start until the fall with our own tour that'll go up and down the country.
Where do you have any stops already scheduled?
Yeah, we do. Pittsburgh is one.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I was hoping that would be one because I'll have two little boys hand in hand while going through the tour. I'm sure.
Well, we'll give you one free ticket, and then they can all fight with each other to go. Uh, no, I'm glad to send you. What we try and do is, you can imagine, you try to line up venues as close as possible to the other nearest big city,
Mhm.
cut down on your trucking and the time that it takes to set up. But we'll start in Florida and work our way north. What we want to do is a kind of like the circus, only instead of putting them on train cars, we're going to put the entire dinosaur sitting on top of flatbed trucks and drive them through town. So it's like here come the dinosaurs.
That's amazing. So, one of the things that you and I had talked about, as we were preparing for the podcast was, you know, not being afraid to take risks, but from the other side of it is be afraid of taking risks. Can you expand on that a little bit more? I thought that was a great comment, but I'm really curious to see what your take on that is.
Yeah, well, if, in short, I think the way to make money. I've been around a while, but I haven't been always successful in business. That's okay. I was doing what I wanted to do. Sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. So that's a core lesson that everybody hears. But you're going to fail a couple of times before you succeed,
Hmm.
and there's nothing terrible about failure. It just means you do it the next time. So, first part is don't be afraid to do it, and don't be afraid of new things. You can figure this out. It's not like we're not creating nuclear fission. I don't know, maybe people are at home, which would be great, but fusion. But we're not doing that. So learn as much as you can about the business and do it. Once you do it, if you stick with it, that's where I think you earn a great deal of money. I would rather do the next thing once I learn how to do this one. So it's possible to make serial successes that way. More often, there are peaks and valleys. I think the best way to allocate this is to think about three projects within your scope of your business. One is the one that's absolutely out there working perfectly. The second one is the one that you're in the process of making, and the third is the one you're brainstorming. And with that kind of balance, you can keep above the red line and be thinking about where you're going next.
Yeah, and it allows you, especially in that scenario, it allows you to um, continue to take some risks, but they're more calculated risks. That second, where you're trying something new that you had been brainstorming for some time, where they're kind of moving through that cycle. It allows you to take some risks without, uh, without possibly upsetting the apple cart, so to speak.
Yeah, and the relationships. I mean, my wife does nonprofit fundraising, and one of her instructions to boards that want to get more money is go to the people who already gave you money. First of all, be nice to them
Right.
and bother to thank them. But so if you're going to try something new, try it with the audience that you know is going to be receptive. And by the way, has the resources to have done it once so they can do it again. So if you're going off into a new field, it's not totally new. And if you can be using the contacts and the media that you used before, but always be iterating. I mean, you want to be one step or two steps ahead anyway.
So I have to imagine that you took some risks getting into this. I mean, first of all, 150 dinosaurs is not cheap. That's I think you had said that you had about $1 million plus of inventory at the time of Shark Tank.
Right.
So there's some risk there. I mean, you're essentially, you had a pretty good idea and you were moving through, but you had to start somewhere. You had to start with this idea of, hey, we're going to invest in some life size dinosaurs and see if people will come check them out.
Right. That's a subject where, like, as you say with your kids, you can see out there what the market is, and you don't have to try to figure out where the next thing is. So that much is an advantage. But yeah, it's a big gamble. I When I saw this opportunity in its roughest form, when I went to these factories and saw how they're made, well, I started calling up. Oh, that's the other thing I think is, which is everybody says start small and or start at the bottom and work your way up. I think you should start at the top and work your way down, which is go for the thing that you most want, the venue that you most want to be in, the buyer that you most want to reach. If that doesn't work, then you start to work your way down. So I went to the Bronx Zoo, which is the biggest zoo that I knew of that could possibly take these things,
Mhm.
and I lucked out. It was just the time when they were looking for a new set of dinosaurs for an exhibition. And the good fortune is that I had some reputation from just being old, being around for a while. So they were willing to take a shot on a guy who had no dinosaurs in stock and hadn't done this before. Um, so if I had not worked out with them, I would have worked my way down the scale. I wouldn't have started in, podunk and then tried to get to the top. So it's a little counterintuitive, maybe, but it works out very often.
Well, I think that for any entrepreneur that is starting out, if you don't have, if you're not bold, if you can't go and have the conversation with the Bronx Zoo when you have nothing in your hands to show them, or you don't have the dinosaurs in stock, um, if you don't have that confidence, it's really going to be hard to gain that confidence. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you have to really, I think, go through it in your head as to what are the risks, because your whole life is all about people telling you, don't take a chance, don't raise your hand if you don't know the answer, don't, so it's against all that. So, it helps to be arrogant, but not everybody is that either. So then the key is just, okay, it's not going to hurt me that much to take the chance. The real problem for entrepreneurial people, because it's in your blood anyway. I mean, I never wanted to work for anybody.
mhm.
Nobody ever wanted to have me as an employee either, but that's a different question. The real problem is, of course, when the business starts to grow, you get beyond the entrepreneur. You want a guy who's very organized to run the business. And now the people who work with me are like, can we get a structure here and somebody who actually is paying attention to what's going on? So they're being very quiet here. But the two victims are sitting there. So that's the transitional problem. So it's an interesting challenge once your business starts to grow, and that rarely gets talked about. At least I don't see it very much. How do you make that transition? We're just in the process this last year getting a CFO and all the logistics management. So you very quickly get into an area where that's not your strength. Your strength as an entrepreneur is trying something new.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the non-risk takers around you, because I'm the same way. I have an amazing COO, right? He handles all of our factories and all that stuff. If that was left to me, we would be doing stupid things all the time, just because that's in my nature. Like, hey, let's break it and try to put it back together and make it something new, or let's and so it sounds like you're the same way. And I do think that is the mark of most entrepreneurs. Like we're not good at cleanup. We're the bull in the china shop. And somebody has to come behind us with the dustpan and and clean up behind us.
Right. Well, that's because we're producing something that ought to go in the dustbin.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's a difficult change, but I mean, if you can make it like, I think the best way is for me to be just a figurehead. Everybody else do that, and then me go off and look for something new to do, and somebody else say, "Wait, hold on, we'll get to that.
Right.
We'll get
So
there."
well, I have to tell you, I know that we're a little short on time here today, but I'd love to maybe continue this in the future, and definitely want to meet up in person. We're so close. You guys are just in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, and I can't say for sure, but Pittsburgh is a zoo that we haven't done dinosaurs with, so it's about time we got there. Maybe next year. And I'd love to talk to you some about the things that we're going to be doing. A documentary series about making the dinosaurs.
Can you share some of those details? We got about 5 more minutes.
Yeah, sure. So I have a friend who's made literally more documentaries than anybody else around. He used to run it for the Discovery Channel, and he had the good idea that instead of all these dinosaur documentaries where there's a scientist in a hole and he's trying to describe as best he can this thing that you have a hard time seeing, and then they animate it and it's over. Why not do the part about how we realize dinosaurs, how we make them real in the factory? So it's the dinosaur factory, and we take every show a different dinosaur, what science knows about them, then how that informs what we do. As you were saying, how do you know what color it is? Sometimes we actually know that, or how big it is, or anything else, how it moved. And that's the focus of the show. And right now, the whole process of that is an interesting business. You have to cobble together funding from different sources. The U.S., like Discovery Channel, only pays about half what it takes to make the show, and then you got to find foreign rights to do the rest. So it's all in that process, but it's pretty far advanced as a show to getting done. And Mark Cuban is going to be like the Wizard of Oz behind the
Oh, that's
screen,
so neat.
to tell us what we ought to be doing.
So you got the documentary coming up. So you guys will be shooting that soon, or have you guys started some of like the
Yeah,
storyboarding of that? Or
yeah, and we already did, the sizzle reel for this, and outlined all the shows. And so most of the money, as you might expect in many things, is going to seems come from China. So then
okay,
you have to orient your show towards where the money came from, because they like to see their home territory represented. I'm trying to develop a kids uh, animated TV series that we might try to crowdfund, despite Mark's injunctions about doing that. But he said you don't want to have all these investors who all want something and are all, at your door. At three or four people instead who are core to this. But it also would be fun.
well, hey, I really look forward to seeing what I definitely will be watching for the documentary. Can't wait to see the dinosaurs coming through on flatbeds through Pittsburgh someday in the near future, and definitely want to visit your tour and the displays coming through. So good luck with everything. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk to me and to our listeners. And um, man, I can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, thanks. And my pleasure. Good luck with your business.
Well, thank you.
Sounds like it's going great.
Yeah, we're keeping our heads up. So and my team is always wondering what I'll do next. So we'll see what risks we take next. So
Well, by the way, that's one great thing about Shark Tank. And I thanked them when I was on the show. I mean, it's great a service that they're doing to people, just to alert everyone to all these people trying out new things, and trying to make a success of it. So it's kind of laudable what they're doing. It's
it
not like
is.
it is.
I agree with you, and I'm used to taking 30 more seconds here, but I think that they have made entrepreneurship very mainstream, which is great, and I think that there's a trend now to even educate young people. Like I'm doing 3 days at our local elementary school, talking to fifth graders about being an entrepreneur, which man, is that a challenge, fifth graders. But I might show your episode of of Shark Tank instead of mine. But
Do both. Do
yeah,
both.
but yeah, I do think that what they're doing is a service to future entrepreneurs, because I think they're making us again. There's the ones that go on and they're showing the reality. Hey, there's risk involved, and there's reward, and you know, it's not just sports figures that you should look up to. It's business leaders as well. So
Yeah, well, good luck to all of us.
absolutely. Well, thanks again, and I appreciate your time, and good luck with everything.
My pleasure. See you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Lessons from the Tank. If you got value from today's podcast, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast so you're notified when a new episode is posted. If you'd like to support our podcast, we encourage you to review it and share it with a friend. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode.